It was the evening of November 9th, 1989. A cold wind swept through the streets of Berlin, carrying with it whispers of something unimaginable, something that would rewrite the story of the 20th century. No one knew it yet. But the world was about to change forever. For nearly 3 decades, a concrete scar had sliced through the heart of Germany. The Berlin Wall. It wasn't just made of cement and barbed wire. It was built out of fear, control, and ideology. It was where freedom ended and oppression began. But that night, November 9th, the wall that once divided the world would crumble, and humanity would take a collective breath of freedom it had been denied for far too long. The story begins after World War II, when the victors carved Germany into zones of influence. The Soviet Union took the East, the Allies took the West. Berlin, though deep inside Soviet territory, was divided too. And from that fracture, 2 worlds emerged, East and West. To the West stood capitalism, democracy, and open expression. To the East, communism, control, and silence. Families were torn apart overnight. Streets that once led to a friend's home suddenly led to a death trap. Watchtowers, dogs, barbed wire, and soldiers with orders to shoot anyone who tried to cross. It became the ultimate symbol of the Cold War, concrete proof that humanity had split itself into 2 opposing worlds, not just politically but morally. And yet, even behind the Iron Curtain, people dreamed. They dreamed of escape, of light, of life beyond the wall. Every failed attempt, every shot fired, echoed across the globe as a reminder of what was at stake: freedom. Through the 1980s, the Soviet Empire began to crack. Revolutions whispered through Eastern Europe, in Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia. The old order was collapsing. In East Germany, the tension was unbearable. Thousands began to march in the streets, chanting for reform, for democracy, for a chance to simply live without fear. The government tried to silence them. But the voices only grew louder. Then, on that fateful evening, November 9th, confusion, miscommunication, and history collided. At a routine press conference, an East German spokesman, flustered and uncertain, read a note suggesting that travel restrictions between East and West Berlin were lifted. A journalist asked, "When does this take effect?" The spokesman hesitated and then said the words that would change everything. "As far as I know." Effective immediately. The message spread like wildfire through East Berlin. People poured into the streets, unsure if it was real, afraid it was a trap. But desperate to believe, crowds gathered at the Bornholmer Strasse checkpoint. Their voices trembling, their faces lit with disbelief. The guards didn't know what to do. Their orders were unclear. They were armed, but they were also human. And as the chants grew louder, as the pressure became unbearable, the gatekeeper, a man named Harold Jaeger, made a decision that would echo through time. He opened the gate, and in that single act of defiance, one man allowed a nation to breathe again. Thousands rushed across, tears streaming down their faces, arms raised in disbelief. On the western side, crowds of Germans welcomed them, strangers embracing strangers, laughter and crying blending into a single sound. Freedom. People climbed the wall. They danced on it, hammered it, chipped it apart with whatever they could find. Under the floodlights and the falling snow, the world watched the impossible unfold. The Berlin Wall, the Cold War's iron heart, was dying. Across the globe, televisions flickered with images of people hugging, crying, and cheering atop the wall that once symbolized despair. The West cheered, the East wept. And for the first time in a long, long while, humanity felt united. Politicians hadn't planned it. Armies hadn't fought for it. It wasn't a treaty or a speech or a command. It was people, ordinary men and women, who brought down that wall. The night sky of Berlin was filled not with gunfire, but with the sound of hammers breaking concrete and voices singing in hope. The fall of the Berlin Wall didn't just reunite a city, it reunited families, friends and hearts. It marked the end of the Cold War, and the beginning of a new era, one where communication and connection became possible again across borders that had once seemed eternal. It proved something profound, that no matter how tall the walls we build, human hope will always find a way to climb higher. It was a moment when history itself seemed to pause, when all the suffering, fear, and division of the 20th century collapsed under the weight of unity and courage. That night, the world learned a lesson that still echoes today. Walls can be built in a day, but freedom takes generations of courage to win. As dawn broke on November 10th, the streets of Berlin were still alive with celebration. The wall, once a fortress, now lay in pieces, scattered like the shattered remains of an era that had finally ended. A young boy held up a chunk of the wall, a piece of stone that once divided his world. He didn't know it yet, but he was holding history in his hands, and around the globe, people watching on flickering screens whispered the same words. It's over. The Cold War had ended, not with an explosion, but with a door opening. November 9th, 1989. A date that changed everything. The night when fear fell, and freedom stood tall, because when a wall built to divide finally collapses, humanity remembers what it means to be one.